Behind the blinding flash of the pyrotechnics, the roar of sold-out stadiums, and the larger-than-life superheroes who seem immune to pain, professional wrestling harbors a devastatingly dark secret. For decades, the industry has been a machine that consumes human bodies and spirits, demanding a level of performance that is quite literally impossible to maintain without a cost. We see the championships, the glamorous travel, and the iconic moments etched in history, but we rarely see the empty pill bottles, the lonely hotel rooms, and the shattered lives left in the wake of the Superman persona. Today, we are pulling back the heavy velvet curtain of the WWE and the wrestling world at large to examine the stories of the legends whose careers and in some cases, their very lives were dismantled by the grip of addiction. These are the stories that the companies couldn't hide, and tragically, the stories of the souls they couldn't save. The name Jeff Hardy is synonymous with the word enigma. To a generation of fans, he was the ultimate daredevil, the man who treated his own skeleton as if it were made of rubber. We remember him flying off the rafters, crashing through stacks of tables, and redefining what was possible in a ladder match. He wasn't the most muscular man in the locker room, nor was he the most vocal, but he possessed a haunting charisma that drew people to him. However, the price for that legendary daredevil status was paid in agony. Every swanton bomb from a 20-foot ladder took a piece of Jeff's future. The physical trauma became so overwhelming that the transition from doctor-prescribed painkillers to emotional dependency was almost invisible. By the early 2000s, during the peak of the Attitude Era, a culture of powering through with pills was rampant. Jeff began missing shows, arriving in no condition to perform, and eventually, the WWE had to let their biggest star walk away because his spiral had become a liability. Before we dive deeper into these heavy accounts of struggle and survival, I want to take a quick moment to speak to the family. If you find value in these deep dives into the human side of the squared circle, the triumphs and the tragedies that make us love this business, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to SLAMZONE. We are building a community here where we honor the history of wrestling and the people who gave everything to entertain us. Your support helps us keep these stories alive, so join the SLAMZONE family today and hit that notification bell so you never miss a breakdown. Jeff Hardy's journey didn't get easier after leaving the global spotlight of WWE. His move to TNA was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to breathe. But addiction is a shadow that follows you across state lines and company borders. The absolute nadir of his career occurred in 2011 at the Victory Road pay-per-view. Jeff entered the ring for a main event title match against Sting, but it was immediately clear to everyone from the referee to the fans and the rafters that Jeff was severely intoxicated. He could barely stand, let alone compete. In a moment of professional mercy, Sting forced a lightning-fast finish to get Jeff out of the ring before he could hurt himself or someone else. That night became a permanent stain on his legacy, a rock bottom captured on live television. Over the following decade, Jeff's life became a grueling cycle of rehab and relapse. Even his triumphant 2017 return to WWE, which felt like a miracle, was eventually overshadowed by further legal troubles and admissions that he had competed while under the influence. Jeff Hardy's story is a heartbreaking reminder that the same fearlessness that makes a man a legend can also be the very thing that prevents him from fearing the edge of the abyss. While Jeff was a daredevil by choice, Dustin Rhodes was a man born into a legacy that felt like a cage. As the son of the American dream, Dusty Rhodes, Dustin walked into the industry with the weight of the world on his shoulders. The pressure to live up to his father's gargantuan shadow pushed him toward the controversial and avant-garde character of Goldust. He was determined to prove he was more than just a famous last name, but the mental and physical toll of the road began to erode his resolve. Like so many others, his descent started with a simple prescription for pain, which morphed into a need for sleep, which eventually transformed into a dependency on alcohol and cocaine. By the mid-2000s, Dustin was a ghost of himself. He would wake up in hotel rooms with no memory of how he arrived, his body failing and his marriage in ruins. The turning point was a phone call from his father, who told him, "I love you, but I don't know who you are anymore." Those words acted as a lightning bolt to his soul. Dustin checked into rehab and began a miraculous journey toward sobriety that has lasted over 15 years. Today, he stands as a beacon of hope, a man who reclaimed his life and proved that you can find your way back from the darkest corners of the industry. Then there is the story of the ninth wonder of the world, China. Joanie Laurer didn't just break the glass ceiling, she shattered it with her bare hands. In the late 90s, she was a phenomenon who transcended gender roles, winning the Intercontinental Championship and entering the Royal Rumble. She was an icon of strength and empowerment. But when the bright lights of WWE faded following her 2001 departure, the silence was deafening. Suddenly, she wasn't a superhero anymore, she was a woman named Joan who didn't know how to exist without the adulation of the crowd. Loneliness is a powerful catalyst for addiction. China struggled with deep-seated trauma and depression, turning to anti-anxiety medication and sleeping pills to quiet the noise. She wasn't looking for a high, she was looking for a way to cope with the loss of her identity. By 2016, she was making genuine efforts to get clean, but the damage to her system was hidden. On an April night in California, she passed away from an accidental overdose, a tragic end for a woman who spent her life fighting for a seat at the table, only to find the table empty when she finally got there. Her story is a poignant reminder that behind the muscles and the intimidating stares are human beings who need a support system that lasts long after the final bell rings. The Samoan savage, Omega, was another force of nature who felt like an immovable object in the ring. Eddie Fatu came from the legendary Anoa'i bloodline, a family synonymous with wrestling greatness. In the ring, he was a terrifying beast who decimated opponents with the Samoan spike. But backstage, Eddie was known as a gentle giant, a soft-spoken man who deeply loved his family. The conflict between his brutal in-ring style and the reality of his aging body led him down a path of heavy medication. The injuries piled up: concussions, torn muscles, and broken bones, and the pills became his only way to keep the bulldozer moving. When he was released from WWE in 2007 for a wellness policy violation and a refusal to seek treatment, it was a sign of a man in deep denial about the state of his health. In 2009, at only 36 years old, Eddie Fatu's heart stopped. The cause was acute toxicity from multiple medications. He was a man who conquered every opponent he ever faced, but he couldn't conquer the chemical dependency that had silently taken root in his system. Perhaps no story of addiction and redemption is as universally cited as that of Eddie Guerrero. Latino Heat was a technical wizard, a man whose charisma could light up a stadium. But Eddie's journey was defined by a massive car accident in 1999 that nearly took his life. The recovery process introduced him to a world of painkillers that he used to mask not just his physical agony, but the immense pressure he felt to succeed as a smaller wrestler in a land of giants. His addiction became so severe that WWE had to release him in 2001. However, Eddie's story is one of the most beautiful comeback arcs in history. He went to rehab, found his faith, and worked his way back to the top, eventually winning the WWE Championship in one of the most emotional moments ever captured on film. He became a symbol of hope for anyone struggling with their demons. Tragically, the years of abuse had already done their work. In 2005, at the absolute height of his popularity and while being completely sober, Eddie's heart failed. He died in a hotel room at age 38, leaving the world to mourn a man who had finally beaten his demons, only for his body to give out as the price for surviving the war. We also have to look at the bad guy, Scott Hall. As Razor Ramon, he was the personification of cool. He had the walk, the talk, and the toothpick that defined an era. But Scott's struggles with the bottle were legendary and public. Growing up in the 80s territories meant living in a culture where a case of beer and a handful of Reds were considered a standard post-match meal. For Scott, the partying never stopped. Even at the height of his fame in the NWO, his addiction was so rampant that WCW famously and controversially integrated his real-life alcoholism into his TV storylines. It was a cry for help that was treated as entertainment. For years, fans watched as one of the greatest minds in the business deteriorated, appearing at independent shows unable to stand or speak. It wasn't until Diamond Dallas Page stepped in with his DDP yoga program and a structured environment that Scott finally found a path to sobriety. He lived his final years clean, mending his relationship with his children and taking his rightful place in the Hall of Fame. His story shows that while addiction can take everything from you, it is never too late to reclaim your dignity. The tragedy of Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig is another stark cautionary tale. Hennig was the gold standard for in-ring performance. He made everything look effortless, from his perfect suplex to his iconic towel toss. But that perfection required him to ignore a back injury that would have sidelined most people for life. To stay in the main event, Curt relied on a cocktail of painkillers and stimulants. The pressure to remain perfect in the eyes of the fans and the office created a psychological trap. In 2003, Curt was found dead in a hotel room from acute cocaine intoxication. He was 44 years old. It was a shocking reminder that even the men who look like they have everything under control can be harboring a storm of pain and dependency that they are too proud to admit. Finally, we have the nature boy Ric Flair. Flair's entire brand was built on excess: the private jets, the expensive robes, and the all-night parties. For 50 years, Ric Flair didn't just play the character, he was the character. He famously claimed to drink 10 to 20 drinks a day for decades, all while wrestling hour-long Broadway matches. He survived a plane crash, lightning strikes, and thousands of matches, leading many to believe he was truly immortal. But the bill always comes due. In 2017, the lifestyle finally caught up with him. Rick collapsed as his organs began to fail, and he was placed in a medically induced coma. Doctors gave him a 20% chance of living. Against all odds, the Nature Boy survived, but he woke up a different man, one who had to learn to walk and eat all over again. His survival is a miracle, but it serves as a final, loud warning that no one, not even the greatest of all time, can outrun the effects of long-term substance abuse. The world of professional wrestling has changed significantly since the eras of these men and women. The implementation of the wellness policy and a greater focus on mental health has undoubtedly saved lives, but the shadows of the past still loom large. These athletes gave us their bodies, their youth, and their health to create moments that would last forever. They were heroes on the screen, but behind the scenes, they were humans struggling with a schedule and a lifestyle that few could endure. As fans, it is our responsibility to remember them not just for their highlights, but for the battles they fought when the cameras were off. We honor their memories by learning from their struggles and demanding that the industry continues to evolve into a safer place for the next generation of performers. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through the history of the squared circle. It's never easy to look at the darker side of the things we love, but it's necessary to appreciate the true cost of our entertainment. If this video moved you or gave you a new perspective on these legends, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to SLAMZONE. We want to hear from you in the comments which of these legends inspired you the most with their struggle or their comeback. Let's keep the conversation going and support each other as a community. Don't forget to share this video with a fellow fan who might need to hear these stories of resilience and caution. As we look toward the future of wrestling, let's carry the lessons of Eddie, Chyna, Jeff, and Rick with us. Let's celebrate the ninth wonder, the Samoan Savage and the charismatic Enigma for the joy they brought us, while never forgetting the human beings who lived behind the face paint and the sequined robes. They were more than just characters, they were fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. They were legends, but they were also survivors. This has been a SLAMZONE deep dive, and we are so grateful to have you as part of our family. Stay safe, stay respectful, and keep the passion for the business alive. We will see you in the next one for more intense wrestling breakdowns and the stories that define the industry. Peace out, SLAMZONE family.